The Sicha that we're learning over here begins with this pasuk, this verse from Parshas Toldos. Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram, Avram beholodis Yitzchak. These are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram begot Yitzchak. We looked at a lot of different commentaries explaining what's the double language here. And the general thing we got to is that this Parsha of Toldos is going to mainly focus on Yitzchak and his story, also his progeny. Twins are born here. But why is it repeating? To say that there was irrefutable proof that Yitzchak was Avram's son. It was so long until Sarah had a child. And she was in other people's houses, Pharaoh and Avimelech, etc. So who's the real father? In case anyone, the scoffers would say that Yitzchak looks exactly like Avraham. So much that they would get confused for each other. Not just that he looked exactly like him, but he also took after him in his traits. So not just in physical features, but in spiritual divine service, they were similar. The thing that we have a whole question around is how can we say that they're similar in divine service when we know that Avraham represents love and kindness. So kindness is the display of love. Love is an inner feeling and it's displayed through kindness. And Yitzchak is awe and fear. So we even have that in the way that they're described. We say Avram Ovai, Avram who loved me, and Yitzchak Ufachad, Yitzchak the one that Yitzchak feared. Yitzchak, even though we see here that it says the one who Yitzchak feared, we have 4 examples of how Yitzchak is actually associated with Ava, love, kindness, etc. Yitzchak was born on Pesach, which is Avram's holiday. Yitzchak's name is derived from laughter, which is an outward display of joy and happiness, not something of fear. Yitzchak is associated with that he grew great, that we say how rich he became, better than manure of Yitzchak's animals on the gold and silver of Avimelech. Greatness, expansiveness is something of love and kindness, not something of gvura, might, and restraint. And we also have that Yitzchak is associated with multiplying, where he says, I'm going to multiply your seed, it's going to be a great nation one day, and I gave him Yitzchak. Multiplying is, again, the language of expansiveness. This seems to be not the language of fear, but the language of love and kindness. That's where we got to the whole thing, that you can say, well, these traits overlap, because we see that there are times when Avram, when he took Yitzchak and was almost going to offer him as a sacrifice, no, now I see that you're a God-fearing man. Is that until now we haven't seen that Avram is God-fearing? So the point is, the emphasis is on the fear, that Avram has always been love and kindness, and now he's displaying fear. That's where we have everything with Tanya, where it talks about the overlapping traits. Some Jews, their souls are rooted in kindness. Some Jews, their souls are written in gvura, might, severity, etc. But there are times you have to know when you have to use the other trait. So you still have to have both traits. It's just that one of these traits will probably be more dominant according to where your soul comes from. So we're trying to use this to say that, sure, Yitzchak took after Avram because he also had traits of love and kindness. He has some of them, so yeah, he also had it also. Kind of reject that idea to say, no, it's not a matter of saying that Yitzchak also had these traits, but it's a fundamental part of his makeup. Love and kindness was a fundamental part of his makeup, which is kind of, that's what the Sicha is going to figure out for us. So we finished off with last time, is that we had this idea of Ezehu Gibor, who is strong, who is a mighty person, a Kovish Yisitra, one who can conquer his inclination. So not just the evil inclination, but your own natural traits and tendencies. A strong person is someone who could demonstrate restraint. There's a tremendous amount of restraint that's necessary and needed to hold back a potential. Think of like a rushing river that cannot be beneficial if it's going to be a flooding river. So holding it back, there must be a great power to hold that back. That's what gvura is. It's not just like, oh, look how strong and mighty I am. It's being able to hold back, especially if holding back is going to be to the benefit. That's basically where we're getting to. So we ended by saying that fear is the manifestation of Hashem's might, which inspires awe. It says Avram holis Yitzchak, that Avram begot Yitzchak. Avram and Yitzchak look the same, not only in features, but also in spiritual makeup and service of love, as in the divine pathway of love. However, as Yitzchak's name derives from happiness, this attribute is part of the fundamental makeup. Yitzchak, remember, has come from schok, laughter. Laughter is an outward display of happiness. That is not a trait of gevura, of might, severity, fear, awe. The name is indicative of what his pathway was. We have to reconcile this. How could the person who's supposed to represent might and power, etc., be a person whose name means laughter? It doesn't seem to align. Again, we have Avram Holis Yitzchak. Avram Nikra Avram. Avram was called Avraham. Yitzchak Nikra Avram. Yitzchak was called Avraham. As it says, Told Yitzchak ben Avram, Avram. These are the generations. This is the legacy of Yitzchak, Avram's son, Avram. Bereishis Rabbah. When we're talking about Yitzchak is called Avram, we're saying that that's how alike they were. So again, not just in the physical makeup, but also in the spiritual makeup. Looking at this idea of Yitzchak being a name of laughter and happiness, 2 verses, both from Tehillim. So we have one verse that says, Ivdu es Hashem b'ir v'gilu b'r'ada, serve Hashem with awe and be glad while trembling, and Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha bo l'fanav b'r'nana, serve Hashem with joy, come before him with praise. If you look at the words that are being used here in the Hebrew, gilu b'r'ada, the last 2 words there, gilu, is translated here as glad. Gilu is from the word of gila. Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, joy. Gila, it's a name of gladness and joy, but it's gladness that's not readily apparent, which is why it coexists with awe and trembling. The verse says, serve Hashem with awe and be glad while trembling. It is a language of joy, but it can coexist with awe and trembling. We would see the trembling, that would be the body would manifest, would show, there could still be gladness. So it's a coexisting level of joy. Versus simcha, this is a revealed happiness. We don't see trembling, we see actual happiness. It's a greater, expanded level of happiness. That's where the name of Yitzchak would come from there. Laughter is a display of happiness. What we're trying to lead to is that, again, Yitzchak's name is Yitzchak. It's not just, oh yeah, he also had love and expansiveness and joy and all that kind of stuff in service. Like, no. This is indicative of who he was, of an outward display of love and laughter and happiness, etc. Again, this is what we're trying to figure out here. How could that be if he's also supposed to be the one of fear and awe? When we look at Ava, which is the root of kindness and joy and laughter, etc. Ava, which is love, engenders closeness between the one who loves, which is called Ha'oev, and the beloved, the Hanehav. When you love someone, you want to draw close to them. I want to spend time with you. I want to hang out with you. I want to be with you. Let's go do stuff together. Let's just talk. However, it doesn't lead to nullity, what we call bittul, of the one who loves for the sake of the loved one. I can love you so much, but I can still maintain and retain my identity as myself. I feel myself even as I want to draw close to you. Rather, it accentuates his identity as the one who loves and draws close. I am the one who I'm feeling this great love for you. I am the one who draws close to you. Now, not to say Ava could have bittul. If you remember from Tanya, the later chapters of Tanya, we're talking about, oh, there's this level of love, and there's this level of love, and another level of love. So we could eventually reach it, but the general idea, we're talking about just on a broad sense of things, is that Ava, you can have a great love for someone, and I want to draw close to you, but it's me. I'm the one who feels the love. I'm the one drawn close to you. I am still a significant part of this equation. The love is there. Yes, it's love, but I'm the one who's drawing close. Versus Yira, which is fear or awe, it engenders bittul, nullity, foregoing the sense of self, so identity is subsumed within the one he's in awe of. When you're in awe of someone or something, then yourself becomes irrelevant. It becomes so small. A basic idea that if you're afraid of any sort of thing, you're afraid of a spider, you're screaming from a spider, what are you afraid of? You're like 40,000 times bigger than the spider. But in that moment of fear, you're not feeling 40,000 times bigger. You feel tiny. Because that's what fear does to us. It contracts us. It makes us smaller. Myself is smaller. That's why fear can be so irrational. And what are you afraid of? Don't forget who you are and what you can do, etc. Why does fear hold us back? Because it makes us smaller. Versus love is not necessarily that. Love can be very much an expansiveness of the self. The givingness. That's why love is associated with kindness and giving. And fear is restraint, might, holding something back. What does that bring us to? We have this manifest in different ways. The love of a father and a son. The father and the son, you could have fear in that also, but talking about the love between a father and the son, it's a mutual feeling of love. The son's love doesn't nullify him. Rather, he feels closeness and love toward the father as he exists as his son. As in, you are the father, I am the son. As your son, I feel love to you. The love that we have is based upon the identities that we have. So you're not nullifying the identity. It's part of why the love exists. Moreover, the father's love boosts the son's sense of self. A child who feels their parents' love, they feel more confident in themselves. Their own sense of self is much more solidified. That's what the love between a father and son does. Obviously, you could apply it to different kinds of relationships, but that's a general idea of what love does. We talk about validation or things like that. That's what love is. I am sure of my sense of self. Versus servant to the master. Obviously, there could be love here too, but the main thing is that it mainly hinges on fear and awe of the servant for his master. He accepts the yoke of service and submits himself to his master. The master and the servant are not sitting and having long discussions about like, well, what's your opinion on this? The servant does whatever the master requests of him. The servant sets his own self aside. You know what they say? The soldier has a head to wear a helmet. When you're in infantry, your job is not to sit and strategize and ask questions, whatever. Your job is to go out there and implement the plan. You have a head to wear a helmet. The servant to the master is based on fear, awe, etc. because your sense of self is nullified. It's set aside. Your entire relationship is just about the master. What does the master want? What does he need? What's his desires, etc.? Your job is to just fulfill them. Not as you, which if anything, you're less of a self in that service. So we see the difference between these two. And we can see how each one, love is the dominating factor and fear the dominating factor. A parallel to man's divine service. This is, we say in Rosh Hashanah davening, during Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. Remember, it's a long Musaf and they sound the shofar a few times. So when they sound it during the Chazin's repetition of the Midah, Hayam haras olam, Hayam yamid b'mishpat kol yitzurei alamim, in kavanim in kavadim. In kavanim rachamenu krachim av abanim, in kavadim enenu l'chas luyas, at shetchanenu v'sotzi cha'ar mitritenu ayam kadosh. On this day the world came into being. On this day he makes stand in judgment all the creatures of the worlds, whether as children or as servants. If as children, have compassion on us as a father has compassion on his children. If as servants, our eyes are fixed on you until you favor us and bring forth our judgment as the light, revered and holy one. Personal service, divine service, we have both relationships at play in our relationship with the divine. We have this father and the son. We are God's children, and also servant to the master, that we are God's servants. And we see it come up often. The liturgy and the language in prayers. Like here we have Ben Yechabed of Ve'eved Adonai Ve'im Ani of Ayech Vadi Ve'im Adonim Ani Ayem Marai. This is from Malachi. A son honors a father, and a slave his master. Now if I am a father, where is my honor? And if I am a master, where is my fear? Right, we're seeing the language that's used. Bana matem l'Hashem Elokechem, you are children of the Lord your God. Bana matem l'Hashem Elokechem, you are children of the Lord your God. Again, the language is being used here through the Torah, prophets, etc. Tanakh. For they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They should not be sold as a slave is sold. I actually think that's when it talks about Shemitah and Jewish people having to free their slaves. A Jewish person have a Jewish slave or someone not to be sold into servitude. Every Shemitah year they go free. But now there might be some who decide, no, I don't want to go free. I like my situation here. You take them to the doorpost by the mezuzah and their ear gets pierced. Because that ear that heard at Mount Sinai that you are my servants is now choosing, this person is now choosing to be the servant of somebody else. But then by the Yovel year, Yovel is every 50 years, every 7 Shemitah years, so that's 49 years, the 50th is the Yovel year. No matter what, all slaves go free. All servants go free. For the children of Israel, I'm servants to me. They are my servants whom I took out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Remember, we've spoken about this a lot, that you have to finish the sentence. Moshe told Paro, Moses to Pharaoh said, let my people go so they may serve me. You can't forget the second part of that sentence. It wasn't just like, you're free, everybody's free. You're being free so that you will become my servants. God says, I am your master. To serve me, that's why we go straight to Har Sinai to get the Torah. But here, we're seeing how we have the different relationships. Kiata Avinu, for you are our father, the way that we speak to God. The Avinu Malkeinu prayer. So Avinu is our father, Malkeinu our king. We're trying to talk to God for all these requests. So we say, Avinu, our father, as in talk to God as a child to parent, where there's more compassion there. Go to Malkeinu, go to our king, as in talk to the stricter side of yourself to grant us these requests. Okay, but the point is, we see all the language here that we connect to God through the child to the parent relationship, which would be much more love-based, or servant to master relationship, which is much more fear-based. We have to have both in service. Also, because love can lead to such a great expansiveness of the self, we need something to pull ourselves back in again. That's what fear does. Fear balances the expansiveness. We need to have both in our service of God. It's such a big misconception for people to think that fear is just fear of punishment. It's a very one-on-one level of understanding of fear, especially in Judaism. You can't dismiss it entirely. Fear of punishment is good if it keeps you as a preliminary step from not doing what you're not supposed to be doing. But if you're going to go beyond the preliminary step, then fear of punishment falls by the wayside. That's not what it is. It's being so in awe of something that your own self becomes smaller. When your own self becomes small, that means that the things that you want, your desires, etc., they become less relevant. They're less important. Who has time for it at a moment like this? If you go stand before a king, the first thing you think about is like, oh, I need a new pair of sneakers. No, that doesn't happen in that moment. You're so full of awe and majesty. You go stand in this incredible vista. You look up at the night sky and you see all the galaxies and the planets, etc. Your first thought is, did I leave the iron on? Your own self does not enter into the awe equation. It could, and often does, enter into love equation because I'm the one who's feeling it. Contemplating the relationship of the father and son awakens and reveals a love for Hashem. Yes, we need this relationship. Think of God as our father, the one who provides for us. He created us. We want to have this. We need to have love of God. We want to have love of God. Then I want to serve you. I want to do for you. Contemplating the relationship of the servant to the master awakens and reveals awe and bittul. Same time, we also have to think about God being the master and we're the servant. And the servants, you gotta do what you gotta do. We need both of them. Love and fear differ in man's soul. Love inspires closeness. Awe leads to humility. I want to draw close to you. That's what love is all about. We see it on all kinds of levels. I want to spend time with you, all that kind of stuff. Awe leads to humility, as in the smallness of the self. I am not a relevant factor in this equation. The things that I want, the things that I need, the master is relevant. And serving the master is what's relevant. To do what he wants and needs. Bittul, which is what we call the nullification of the self, as in the setting the whole self aside. Bittul is not sheep-like docility. You're not supposed to be docile. That's not what we're talking about. Don't become what it's called iskufa and adresses, a threshold over which people step. You're not supposed to become just a doormat. That's not what we're looking for when we talk about humility. Specifically a preparatory step in drawing close to Hashem. Where are we going with this? There is a greater closeness that comes from bittul than only from love. The whole thing that we're talking about is love, and you think of father to son. Someone that you love, I want to spend time with you, I want to draw close to you, I want to just hang out with you, be in your vicinity, etc. in a healthy way. The idea of love we know is to draw close. That's what love is about. You feel closeness to someone. Even if you're not actually physically next to them, your heart feels closest to them. However, the point they're making here is that bittul, the nullification of the self, setting your own self aside, can actually lead to a greater closeness. Because love is bound up with a person's conscious identity. As in, he is the one drawing close, I'm the one drawing close. Your identity is a vital part of this equation. And as a person who is a created being, his closest to Hashem is limited. I'm the one who loves, I'm the one who draws close, but because I am a created being, all this closeness is only factored according to what my own limited capacities are as a created being, as in my identity. As a created identity and being, I'm only human, so I have a limited capacity for drawing close, etc. However, only through nullifying and setting aside identity through fear is he a fit vessel for transcendent godly revelation. Only if I put aside my own self can I transcend myself, basically. Because as long as I'm feeling like a self, I can't rise higher than myself. The more I'm tied up in who I am right now, my identity of right now, the less able I am to actually override who I am. It's basically grounding yourself. Sure, it's great achievements and accomplishments, but it's grounded within the self that you identify as, that you've created. It's only when you put all that aside that you could actually go higher than that you could actually transcend that. And here specifically, we're talking about a relationship of a person with God. If I put my own self aside, that means I put my own limitations aside. Whatever a physical human being is capable of. Now, what terms are we working with are God's terms, because we have the master, and the master is infinite, it's God. Which is why, if we're looking at the idea of love as drawn close, awe and fear, etc., actually leads to greater closeness than only love. Book of Isaiah, the Shai says, so said the high and exalted one, God, who dwells to eternity, and his name is holy. With the lofty and the holy ones I dwell, and with the crushed and humble in spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the crushed. As in, yes, God dwells also with the lofty and holy ones, but also I dwell with the crushed and humble in spirit. First of all, those crushed and broken, but also those who are humble, those who have made themselves smaller. The idea of bittul, I've set myself aside. And also, once I've set myself aside, I have so much space for else. It's not me. So we talk about Yitzchak, just like Avram and his divine pathway. Avram is about love and drawn close, but if anything, Yitzchak, through awe and fear, can actually achieve a greater level of closeness to God.